introduction. Thank you, Tommy. Can you hear me still? Is it good and clear?
Okay.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Angela, for inviting me here. It is such a pleasure to be at Rockwell, and let me just tell you why for me personally. When I was a little girl, my cousin who lived with us, she actually worked at Rockwell. And so I would just be like, wow, every day she'd get up and put on her little business suit. And I was like, one day I'm going to be able to put on a business suit and work at Rockwell too. And now I'm actually speaking at Rockwell. So I just think this is just amazing how life does a complete 360-degree circle. And as he said, Tommy said, you know, my life, when we talk about navigating your future, that's what they asked me to talk about. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting because I really spoke almost my future into existence, which is really crazy. All of you sitting around the table or you're eating or whatever, just think about for a moment where you thought you would be or where you wanted to be. And maybe, you know, really working at Rockwell, this is where you want to be in this point of your life, and you went to college or whatever to get in the position that you wanted, but that's what you wanted to do. As a little girl, I can tell you about myself personally. When I think about navigating your future, Zoe and I, when we were on the way, we were talking about different things that the car has. And when you think about the car, it has the P up at the top for park. But in life, when you think about P, you think about the letter P, you think about the word purpose, and you think about the word passion, and I think about the word perseverance. And for me, that came at an early part. I'll tell you a little history about myself. I am a preacher's kid. Anybody in here a preacher's kid or know any preacher's kid? Okay. All right. Now, so now I'll get an amen every now and then. We'll talk later. But, you know, they said the preacher's kids were the worst kids. And, I mean, I tried to make that not be true. But, you know, all the members seemed to think that was the case. But they said the preacher's kids were the worst kids. But I grew up watching my father and my mother really just giving back to the community. My father was a pastor, my mother co-pastor with the church. There were 7 kids in our house, plus she brought in 2 more, which I didn't understand because she could barely take care of us. But they did, and they loved the community. They loved giving back. And I will remember that whenever something good would come into our house, and for me, something good was Captain Crunch cereal. If we ever got some cereal with some sugar already in it, we thought we were doing really, really well. And when Captain Crunch would come into the house, someone always seemed to knock on the door and be in need. And I would watch my parents just give. And my mother would look around and she said, always give your best. Always give your best. And I would think, dang, but do you have to give this? I mean, we've been eating, anybody know about the Post Toasties where you had to put the sugar in there? We would eat Post Toasties without the sugar. I mean, that's just how poor we were. But we were rich in love. And that's what my mother always said. You know, our house was the home on the block where all the kids came to. All the kids wanted to play. Because my mother made us feel like, first of all, every kid was the favorite kid in the house. And I don't know how she made 9 kids feel like they were all the favorites. But we did. And so as I watched her give and give back to the community growing up, first of all, I said I would never be a pastor, because I didn't want to go through what they went through in life. I decided that. The other thing I decided, my father would always make me get up early every Saturday morning at 6:30 and iron all of my clothes. And I said, Dad, I said, I don't want to do this. And I'm talking about purpose, you know, just speaking these things. And I said, Dad, no, I don't want to iron my clothes. I will not have to do this when I get older. And he said, daughter, yes, you will. Well, I'll tell you now that my husband, he owns a company that does landscaping. And so he bartered with a dry cleaning company. And so we get free clothes, dry cleaning. So I don't have to iron my clothes. And I'm just saying, as I began to start thinking about, you know, navigating your future, everything in my life started getting funny because I'm like, everything I said I wasn't going to do, you know, I don't do it. I mean, I don't like cleaning up. And my husband owns a janitorial company. So he'll bring somebody in to clean up my house. And I'm like, wow, I spoke that when I was 13 and 14, and here it is happening. And so as I started talking about navigating your future, really, there was a point in my life where I got married at the age of 17 to the man of my dreams artist. I'm still married 27 years later. Now, talking about Black History Month. Still married 27 years later, and it's just amazing to me. You know, we've had our ups and downs, but there was a point in our lives where my husband and I collectively, we worked 5 jobs collectively. My husband worked for the pizza company. Together we threw the Dallas Morning News. Then he had his own janitorial company, plus he worked for the city of Allen. And there was a time in our life during this time, and I always apologize everywhere I speak, because if you lived in the city of Allen, somewhere between 1988 and 1991, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, if there was ever a loud hit on your window, that was me throwing the Dallas Morning News in anger. And so if I ever hit your door or hit your window at that time and it woke you up and startled you, I apologize everywhere I go when I speak locally. Because I know I must have made a lot of people scared, because my husband, just picture it, we're in a car, my 2 kids are at home, but we're trying to make ends meet, and I am sitting in the trunk of the car. We've already put the newspapers together, but I'm sitting on top of all the newspapers in the trunk. My husband's window, the car window is down, and he's saying left, right, and I am the left and right thrower. Well, in anger, I would throw them really, really hard. I'm like, if I'm up, everybody in the neighborhood needs to be up. And so we did that, and we did that, just trying to make ends meet. And then there came a point in time where I was like, you know what, as a mother, I want to make sure that my kids have healthy meals. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of my kids. And I gave my husband my word that I wouldn't tell my father that he wasn't taking care of me. But what I did do is I took it up on myself, and I drove my car down to the city of McKinney in the government office, and we filled out the paperwork for food stamps. And I said, at least my kids is going to have a meal. That's all I cared about, was getting them a meal. And I remember the look of the people's face. I mean, I even remember how I felt when I was walking in. It was the most horrific experience I've ever had. I don't know if you've ever been there before, and I pray if you have been there that you never have to go back. But I remember sitting there and the parents looking dazed, the mothers looking dazed, the kids are crying, and it was just a horrific experience. And now I know today why God had me do it, why he had me go through those things. But at that moment, all I could do was just cry. I'm filling out 8 pages of paperwork and saying, why am I doing this? But I'm thinking to myself, but my kids will have a meal. And so we fill out all this paperwork, and after I fill it out, they tell me I'm declined. Wow, I've sat up here all day long, and now you're telling me I'm declined. But she hands me this brown paper bag, and I embraced that brown paper bag as though it was my child. I was so happy. I'm like, tonight we will have a meal. That's all that matters. Tonight we will have a meal. And I got home, and when I got home and I put that bag on the table and I began to take stuff out in my excitement, taking it out, I didn't recognize anything in that bag except for beets. And I still have not cooked beets to this day. But I just remember going, my goodness, you know, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way. And as life started getting better for me and my husband, and I'll tell you how good it got. It got so good to at one point I was watching TV, watching the Oprah show, and Oprah said, write down the top 10 things you want to do in life. And that's what I would challenge you to do. Wherever you are right now in life, write down. We're talking about navigating your future. What do you want your future to look like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? You know, who's around you in your future? So I sat down and I picked up my pen and paper and I said, you know what? I want to have my own newspaper column. Granted, this is a girl who didn't even go to college, didn't step a foot in college, but I wanted my own newspaper column. Then I said, I'm going to interview Oprah, and I'm going to interview Will Smith. And I mean, when I tell y'all I was going to have my own TV show, I mean, I was thinking big. And I began to share what I had wrote, the top 10 things I had wrote to people. And people pretty much laughed, like what you're doing today, but let me finish telling you my story. So they laughed at me. They laughed at me. And so I was like, well, how? I wrote all this down. Now, how do I make it happen? How do somebody like me meet Oprah? And everybody else was like, how is somebody like you going to meet Oprah? You know, and I'm living in the city of Plano. And it's funny how life does things. This is the year that Oprah says, I'm going to do Live Your Best Life. So this is the first time Oprah has ever come from behind the scenes and say, I'm going to interact with my audience, with the people who, you know, help me with my brand. And so I went to this newspaper publisher, and I said, I need my own newspaper column. And he started laughing. He said, why should I give you a column? I said, because I'm going to meet Oprah. And if you don't give me a column for me to write about her in your paper, it's going to be in somebody else's newspaper. And he laughed and laughed. But you know what he did? He gave it to me. He gave me my own newspaper column. It was called The Plain Truth, right? So I get my own newspaper column, step 1. Now I got to meet Oprah. I get tickets to this Live Your Best Life conference. And I fly from Plano to Florida. Plano to Florida, because Oprah's doing Live Your Best Life in Florida. And when you talk about you know, you're navigating your future. Whatever you write down for what you want, you got to believe that it's going to happen. I mean, if you don't have the faith that it's going to happen, nobody else is going to believe like you believe in yourself. And so I wrote it down. I said, yeah, I'm going to meet Oprah. So I get there 3 days early. I begin to scout out the place. Let me see who's who. Let me see who's going where, etc. And then I find out, okay, here comes Oprah. The day of the event, I was so nice to everybody that I meet. That's one of the things you have to do, even starting now. I don't know who you work around, but I'm telling you, the kinder you are to people, the more you're going to get out of life. If you've got a bad attitude, you know what? You're not going to get very far. You really won't get very far. And for me, I was so kind to the security guard that I remember walking to him and saying, everybody was outside because they thought Oprah was at this car. Well, honestly, Oprah was at another car, and the only reason I knew that was because I had an opportunity to work for Emmitt Smith. Here I am, didn't go to college or anything, but wrote a business plan, and Emmitt Smith loved the business plan, and he opened up a paging company. So I knew that celebrities always had diversion cars, right? So I'm like, that ain't Oprah's car. There's too many people around that. But I had befriended the security guy, and I said, north, south, east, or west. He's like, north. I was like, okay. There's a guy standing next to me. His name is Jay. I see him so clearly. He's like, I need to meet Oprah, too. I got a chicken dance I have for her. I was like, a chicken dance? And he was like, yeah. And I said, well, come with me. He said, do you know her? I said, I'm going to meet her. He said, how are you going to meet her? I said, just walk with me. Don't ask any questions. So I go to this car, and there's this one limousine sitting there by itself. There she goes. That's Oprah's car. But when it was time for Oprah to come out, it starts to rain. The security guy comes, and he says, you know what? He said, I got to ask you to leave. Oprah's about to come out and you can't be here. When I walked outside and it's raining, y'all know, ladies, we don't mess up our hair. We just don't do that. So when I walked outside and it started raining, I said, Jay, you can stand here and wait on Oprah, but I'm going inside and I'll see her when she enters in on the other side of the building. Well, I started hearing my name on the other side of the building. Cheryl Jackson, Cheryl Jackson. Why is all these people saying my name? And then here comes Jay. Jay comes running up to Cheryl Jackson. Guess what, Cheryl? She stopped the limo. I got to do my chicken dance for Oprah. Really, Jay? Really? And everybody's looking. They were like, you're the one that took him to Oprah, and you left. How are you feeling about that? And my response to them was, what's mine is mine. There's a time and a season and a purpose and a place for all things. When it's my time, it's going to happen. Nobody can stop that. Although I was saying that with my mouth, my heart was saying, what the heck did you do, Cheryl? And so Jay is sitting up there talking, and he's telling everybody he did the chicken dance, and everybody's laughing, and I'm sitting up here trying to laugh with Jay because I'm happy because he met Oprah. And then Oprah comes. Everybody's sitting down, and Oprah comes. And I've told everybody, I'm going to meet Oprah. I'm from Texas. I done came this way. And so Oprah sits down, and the first thing she goes is, okay, where's the girl that I was on the treadmill with yesterday? Don't ask me for nothing. What's your name? And she says her name. She said, what did you ask me for? She said, I asked could I take a picture. She said, what did I say? She said, you said no. She said, but did we have fun on the treadmill? And the lady's like, yeah, we had fun on the treadmill. And Oprah's like, I'm not here to take pictures. I'm here to really just pour into your life. And then Oprah says, now, where is Jay? I'm sitting up here just like, are you serious? She goes, Jay, when the intermission hits, I want to have lunch with you. Oh. Yeah, that's how I was doing too. Times 10. So here I am sitting there, and everybody's sitting around me saying, didn't you take Jay to her? Didn't you take Jay to her? I'm like, yes, I took him to her. She's like, well, she didn't ask for you. She asked for Jay. I'm like, I just heard what she asked for. So we go through, and Oprah's talking, and then she hits this point about Texas, and y'all remember how we sued Oprah because of the beef? Yes. So, you know, people tapping me going, didn't you say you was from Texas? There is no way you're going to get to Oprah. So Oprah does this intermission during the luncheon, right? And then here goes Jay. Well, when Jay gets called out, I run to Jay. And I was like, Jay, can I go with you? Can I go with you? Because, you know, I took him to her anyways. And Jay was like, yeah, you can come. But her security was like, no, you can't go. She only asked for Jay. You're not with Jay. She asked for Jay. So I had my very first article. And so I handed it to Jay, and I said, Jay, will you at least get her to sign my article? That's all I can do. And he said, yeah, I'll see what I can do. So Jay goes to the back, has lunch with Oprah, comes back out, and guess what? He has my article signed. Okay, part one. There we go. So Oprah gets back to talking, etc., and she's asking, who has questions? Who has questions? And I'm like, and I hold up my hand, and she never acknowledged me. Then she said, one more question. And I mean, when I say I hit my hand, I'm like, you better see me this time, Lady O. She looked down and she goes, you. And she points at me. And I'm sitting there. And there's this hush because the other 2,000 people already know I'm about to do something she done told all of us not to do. And I said, Oprah, I said, you told us to write down what our thoughts are, what